Satnam, beautiful sovereign woman. Satnam. I am Jyoti Ratjeep Kaur with VeronicaBerriganIam.com. And today on Sovereign Woman TV, we're going to be diving deep into discussing the divine feminine, Kundalini energy, and the new earth that is being resurrected right now, and how you yourself can join the transition team, Sovereign Woman. As always, thank you so much for liking and for subscribing to Sovereign Woman TV. By subscribing, you will be notified every time I go live, which is every Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesday, spiritual sovereignty videos to help you take your sovereignty back, heal yourself, healing generations before and after you. And then on Thursday, with the follow up Kundalini technology meditation to help you really integrate this newfound awareness. So, welcome, and thanks for being here live, and those watching the replay, and those that share these videos and ask other beautiful sovereign women to join us to our community. Thank you as always. So today I'm going to really try to slow down. My first language is Spanish, and we speak very fast, a lot faster in Spanish. As a young child, really that's the language that I communicate with the most with my parents. So this time I promised myself that I was going to slow down because there's really a lot that we're going to discuss that although it seems from different angles, divine feminine, Kundalini energy, the new earth that's being rebirthed, resurrected right now, I promise you that they all intertwine together and that they actually give you a lot of awareness as to what is happening right now, specifically in the world, especially as it relates to this C virus word. And that's another thing. We're not going to say the C word here, especially during this transmission. And the reason is not because we're ignorant, because a sovereign woman is not ignorant and she has no enemies. So there is no fear in her heart, and specifically about an outside force, right? So it's not because of a fear or ignorance. It's more because we don't want to keep bringing energy to something. Every time you say a word and you think it, especially, but it's so hard for people to control their thoughts right now. They're not meditators and they are not sovereign, right? But every time you say a word, it creates energy towards it, and so you're expanding it into this consciousness. So you want to really, as of especially right now, really learn to perceive this, maybe give it another name so your consciousness starts to see it in a different way, the C virus word. And then that'll help this whole energy behind it not be so much more expanded. So I was like sitting here and I was like, what's a good card, or what's a good name that we can call this, the C virus? Because really a miracle is but a shift in perception. So if you're a meditator, especially a Kundalini yoga meditator, you're able to live in the neutral mind and learn to respond with the strong nervous system and see that shift the perception of to what's happening in the world, have a more higher perceptive reality awareness so that you're not pulled by emotions or by an outer reality that's consistently changing. And so I sat here and I pulled a card. Actually, these beautiful cards were created by an amazing elder, Mayan elder, and he's very wise. And I was able to experience a cacao ceremony with him recently before all of this started to happen, and it was life changing for me. It really opened up my throat chakra, especially to some deep healing. And his name is Jose Munoz. You guys can look him up. He does virtual sessions, and he also does a lot of ceremonies, cacao, and works just a very wise ancestor. Even though to me he looks super young, and I love how real he is. But he created these decks of cards, and I just pulled this card and I asked for another name for the C virus word so that I could use it in case I needed to use it throughout our transmission today. And it was so beautiful, so we don't have to keep putting energy on that other word. But it was so beautiful because the card that came out is Sacred Fire, which is Toj, Tojil, Tojil. And that is literally meaning sacred fire is like the burning, like the purification. And when I looked it up, it literally means fire, illness, pain, offering to Mother Nature to pay her back for our lack of respect to her, pain, strength, energy, light. That's what this card means. So we're going to call that C virus word Toj, Toj, and we're going to refer to it that way so that we're shifting the perception about it, and also we're alchemizing and destroying through fire this illness and this perception what it's here to show us as humanity. Because when we're done with today's Sovereign Woman transmission, you really will have a higher understanding of why this is all connected and why it needs to be happening right now, and how you can protect and strengthen your own spiritual and physical immunity. And so we'll call it Toj, and we'll start with really looking at, I myself have been a Kundalini yoga teacher for the last, year. I've been actually really devoted to my spiritual practice, though, for since 2008, really intentionally. When the first recession happened, I was a real estate broker, super young. My husband and I owned our own company, and everything crashed, and that really set us on a spiritual path of that's when really all of us should have known, because of the astros, the way they were positioned at that time, that what's happening today is inevitable. So everything that happened from 2008 to now has brought me to who I am today, which is I've now not only become a teacher of Kundalini Yoga, which is an ancient science of energy, which is very important for you to understand today, and Kundalini Energy, but also, through my experience in the Peruvian jungle with plant medicines, Mother Ayahuasca, who still lives in my heart and in my consciousness. And this is my ceremonial outfit that I actually had ceremonies with her and in Peru in the Amazon jungle. So she now is, especially now that the veil is becoming thinner and thinner, we are connecting more to our intuition, to the subtle realm, to the spirit world, where before, as a very much typical Westerner who just wanted to accumulate material things and have all these roles and titles, right? I basically was burning out and my soul was dying. And now, being able now to really peel off some of those layers of the ego has been such a process and a journey of a lot of inner work. But Kundalini really has taught me a lot. And Kundalini Yoga, a lot of people think it's an exercise, but as you all know, it's a very deep meditative practice, an ancient practice of energy. And when we start to understand what has happened in the past, especially as it relates to the astros and how the planets were stationed, because I loved astrology for a long time, but I didn't become a student of it until probably, maybe 3 years ago, and then really got deep into my studying last year. And I recently have been taking some courses with amazing teachers like Tashi Powers, and you can follow her on Instagram. She's amazing, and she teaches evolutionary astrology, which I've been a deep student of for the last year, especially really learning and the meaning of the planets and what they mean to us as human beings. And because of that, last April, I actually left out of my 15-year business. I was very comfortable, had an over six figures income. I was a broker manager, real estate, almost 15 years, had built a really good name for myself, had been president of many nonprofits, very involved in the industry, but very unhappy. I was basically treating all of that with addictions and things that were not serving me, because I was not really aligning to what I was supposed to here to do. And, as I started to transition into my holistic practice and astrology become more and more part of my life last April, because of astrology, and I saw how my chart, specifically my astros, how there was this window of opportunity that was opening, because I knew that once Saturn Pluto conjunct happened, which just happened in January 12th, that was the beginning of this world being unrecognizable. Because by the end of 2020, which is right in December, right around the corner now, right? This world will be completely unrecognizable. I mean, this is what the Astro show with the age of Aquarius, and also what has happened in the past in history. And that's sort of where I want to take you today. Take you first on a little journey of understanding what has happened in the past and history, so that you can understand why, specifically also why the astros are positioned in the same way, and why things are happening today. Because it's not a coincidence. It's basically telling us a story of what changes and transformation is happening today. There's things that are very much similar and duplicating themselves, but also these are also signs for us to wake up and to become more aware as to what we need to learn here before we also become extinct, and Mother Nature basically takes over again. Because it's happened in the past, it can happen one more time. And so this all relates to the divine feminine, understanding Kundalini energy, and this new earth, our new earth that's being resurrected. So first and foremost, let's go a little bit back in the past, right? Let's go look at history. That's what has happened, and why many astrologers who I study and learn from, really understood what was going to happen here with the Saturn Pluto conjunct. Okay. So, first and foremost, we first start and look at there's an incredible astrologer and also somebody who they thought was crazy way back in the 90s, but now isn't. And now everybody wants her books because they're like, oh my God, everything she said is happening, or this is exactly what's going on. And her name is Barbara Hand Clow. She wrote Catastrophobia, The Truth Behind Earth Changes and the Coming Age of Light. But she has other books too. She wrote The Palladian. She's actually a Palladian. She's Cherokee, received the teachings from her grandfather. Recently, Guru Jugaad, an incredible mentor that I follow, she recently interviewed her, like a few. I mean, she just uploaded that video this week, so you go definitely go check that out, so you can really understand how she basically, through these wisdom teachings of her Cherokee father, she kind of was already talking about what's happening today. And also, that has a lot to do with the fact of the way the planets were positioned, because she's an astrologer as well, and she understands these teachings of which is a science. It's our Mayan ancestors used it, or Aztec ancestors. I've been to Peru, to Chichen Itza. Chichen Itza's in Mexico. Peru has Machu Picchu. And, we as human beings are still even trying to figure out how that was created, right? And we don't even have that wisdom yet. So they were incredibly wise, right? And they left a lot of information for us if you can learn to really learn to have trust in your intuition and self-experience, and decipher what they're saying, because a lot of the things also that we're told, especially in history, or we're told by people, it's their perception and their reality. So you have to learn to also tune into yourself, and trust your own instinct as to what you believe your truth to be. This is going to be your biggest asset in the age of Aquarius. But if you don't haven't done your inner work and face yourself, how are you going to trust yourself? So, and we're going to talk about that and what's happening today in the north, and why your traumas may be coming up right now. And so she's written several books, and she was talking about how 735 years ago the Astros did what is happening today, right? 735 years ago, Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter, they came conjunct and they were squared Capricorn. And Capricorn's all about governments and leadership and structures, right? I'm actually a Capricorn myself, so I understand that sign very well. And so that was 735 years ago. And when that happened, also, they installed the first clock into churches. So we went from following the natural patterns of Gaia, of nature herself, and we started to operate from a clock. During that time, also, what happened was they basically created the first bank. So the first banking system was created that started all of this, even the Federal Reserve and things that are now we are seeing, right? So when astrologers were studying that time, they saw that when these planets were going to become conjunct in the same position with Capricorn here in January 12th, 2020, which is when it happened, they knew there was going to be a big restructuring of the entire world. Like everything was going to change. And so a lot of astrologers, followed, were waiting for this date, or basically were very aware that there was going to be changes because of this date. And then also, if you trace back time 500 years ago, and during, I think it was 1513, Martin Luther is what began the Protestant movement, which in essence, he was quoted as saying something that was very revolutionary at that point. But in essence, he said something to the summary of, God is not in the churches. God is in man, right? Which at that point he was taking the power away from an outside force, basically somebody, a priest, and then saying that the faith and your salvation, the way they looked at salvation, the Catholic and this sector of Christianity that wanted to separate, was very, very different, because they understood that salvation was through their interpretation of the Bible. So it was just very revolutionary, meaning it started the beginning of the separation of man from needing an outside force. And that was really what the Piscean age, which also we just closed off of, was really all about. And the Aquarian age is all about, self-experience, which I created a whole other video on that, which I'll link in the description below, but you got to go check it out. It's really just a whole different phase that even our indigenous people, ancestors, knew of 26,000 year cycles that in essence close off and then started a new cycle. And that's what was kind of going, it started this transition, this transition of change. And then during that time, also in 15, so Martin Luther started this whole revolution and started to say these things and call out the church, the Catholic Church, for them living in richness and, and not being equal to the poor, et cetera, et cetera. And then during that time, about 15, 16 years later, in around 1531, there was also what happened, which was, if you're from Mexico, I'm from Mexico, I was born in Mexico, but I also have a deep connection with the goddess, with the Virgen de Guadalupe, Our Lady of Guadalupe. And I've always had this just deep, when I think of Divine Mother, I think of her. But I don't see her as like being Catholic. I always saw her as being this divine mother that always protected me. And and as I started to, when I went on my own healing journey, I started to study a lot of the different religions of the world. And it was so interesting to see that most of them actually shared really similar traditions. They had divergence, and the stories were very similar. The Trinity, they all shared very different similar things. So I was like, they're all saying the same thing. It's just everyone's fighting for what reason? So it really boggled my mind. But I always saw her as this divine feminine mother. And so it's in 1531, she does this apparition to Juan Diego. And that's what the Spanish Catholic called him, Juan Diego. His other name is, I don't even want to butcher, it's Cuauhtlistan. I have it written down here somewhere, but I don't even want to mess it up because it's so sacred to be able to say that name. Um, Qua Cuatlatzatzi, Cuatlatzatzi, which is the eagle. And so that was Juan Diego, the version of what the Spanish people called. And during that time in 1531, the Spanish were taking over the Mayan and the Aztec. Juan Diego was said to be Aztec, right? And they came in the name of God to impose their religion onto our Native American and indigenous people. And indigenous, actually, Savon Bomar, which is another great mentor of mine. My son introduced me to him. He says indigenous means some like poor. So there's other words that we need to start calling them, because they were not poor. They were very wise and wealth of wisdom. But elders, maybe we'll call them elders, so that, because indigenous does kind of point back to that. So that was happening. And the Astros were also positioned like around this time. But to me, that really symbolized, and this is where man always messes up religion. They, what they do is they find a divinity like Christ, or the apparition of Our Lady of Guadalupe, and then man wants to take possession of that, make it Catholic only. It doesn't belong to the Hindu because it appeared here and we found it, so she only belongs to us, right? And then what they do is they also truly don't, it's their perception of what they see based on their reality, or also based on a secret agenda. Because if Divine Mother, to me, she symbolizes Divine Mother. And to the Aztec, if you ask the elders, she was Tonantzin, am I saying that right? Yes, Tonantzin, Tonantzin, Tonantzin. And she was mother to them, Mother Pachamama, Mother Earth. And she appeared to Juan Diego, Cuauhtlatzisi, right? And she appeared to him. And it was not for them to now go to the bishop and say, start the Catholic religion and she belongs to you. And now that means that she said that everybody has to be Catholic. This is where they mess things up, and they mess things up in even deeper. And I'll explain what this has to do with Kundalini next. But it was for us, it was like her light symbolizes the union of bringing together. She wanted to really bring together through her apparition the Mayan beliefs or the Aztec beliefs with the Spaniard or beliefs, with as little bit as blood possible. But that wasn't what was happening, right? And the Catholics continued to slay and kill the Aztec and the Mayans and all the other indigenous and our elders. And the Spanish basically said that she was the serpent killer. And I remember growing up in this instance. I have this instance going at full blast, and it's really now making me sneeze. Plus, it's really like been super lots of pollen because it's been raining a lot over here. And I'm in Arizona, so it's actually creating a lot of allergies and stuff like that. Which I never believed in allergies because I totally believe that your emotions create your. I was looking to my emotions, but also the desert has been so pretty and beautiful that I'm like has to be that as well. Even though we're not going out on a lot, anyways, right? So anyhow, so during that time, when I was growing up, I always wondered why would Our Lady of Guadalupe say that she's this? Why would they call her the serpent killer? That never made sense. And lately, I've just been meditating on that and meditating on that and meditating on that. And it's also because my husband and I and my son, they're very connected to their like elder roots, indigenous ancestral roots. And if it wasn't for them, I would be so much like more like just a city girl. I wanted to only live in New York and just be part of that. And thanks to them, I really found my groundedness to earth and Pachamama. It's taken a lot of years, right? But they understand all of the Aztec and Mayan true history, right? And how they basically had a Tenochtitlan, and to them that is Our Lady of Guadalupe. And we always had this disconnect, and especially because I could never understand how could she be a serpent killer. And through my meditations, I've been really connecting with her, and she's been doing so many miracles in my life. It's been incredible. And I was sharing some of them with inside my Satori women's society. And once I voiced it out loud, like it was like, wow, that really did happen. Like I need to be more grateful. And so what I've been getting is that this is why we're here as women. We're waking up and we're here to really reframe the fact that she was at that point the divine feminine awakening. We were transitioning to a new time. During that time, we're taking our own power back through self-experience of God and salvation, right? And she was actually here to teach us how to work with the Kundalini energy, because a lot of the times you'll recognize the serpent as Kundalini, right? And that's why a lot of people are scared of this of snakes. And a lot of these people are Catholic, like me, the way I was raised Catholic, right? And now I understand why, because they've been told all this time that, I mean, if Our Lady of Guadalupe was killing the serpent, then we've got to be afraid of the serpent. There must have been something wrong with the serpent. But there's no way that our own mother would kill any of her creatures. And she created the serpent, or she co-created that with God, right? Or, there's it didn't come out of the air, or just it was came from the creation mother herself. So why would she want to kill the serpent? That does not make sense. So now that I've had this awareness, it's like, well, of course, they reverse things just the way they do it to control the consciousness, to take your sovereignty. They make you afraid, and they make you think that she's only Catholic and that she's not the divine mother that was also appearing to the Aztecs and the Mayan as Tenochtitlan. She was basically, that any man would basically lie to us about the story. And one of the reasons I believe in her so much is because, there's her where she did appear. There's a lot of scientists that have tried to really pull that mantle apart, and it hasn't fallen apart for 500 years. It's still intact. You guys can go look it up on several other videos on YouTube, but it's just miraculous the way it was painted. I mean, it's just incredible. So the apparition did happen, but this way the story was told was not right. And the reason was because if we understood the power of our Kundalini energy, we would be completely sovereign and powerful. And that was the birth of the divine feminine. That was also the start of the transition from the patriarchal, which has really just gone completely mad because only the mind has led, to a matriarchal, which is a divine feminine, which is we at one point matriarch was leading already. So now it's just transitioning into that, and you see a lot more women leaders in the world. And now that's exactly what this age of Aquarius is symbolizing. So now we're also going through this Toj, this fire that's burning, this virus that's burning through the world right now, right? And here we are again. The reason why we talked about that is because the stars were aligned and in the same manner during other viruses, and all those viruses had to do also with the electromagnetic field of the Earth being affected. And how it was affected was by energy being manipulated through technology. So technology is being released to us human beings that then created these basically viruses that would kill a lot of people. So like 1918, the Spanish flu, there was the waves that were activated. In the late 1800s, when there was the flu epidemic, there was actually at that point, that's when they started putting the electricity towers throughout the entire world. And, now we're seeing 5G. And this is where you really need to go listen to Barbara Hand Clow, and especially that last episode she did with Courage of God. But then you have these 5G that is a whole other frequency. And what's the coincidence that that was released first in China, and then that was the first epidemic started and spread. Then it also Milan, and that's where it also hit, right? And so this is not some type of fear mongering where now you're going to be afraid of 5G, because there's people that are also recovering from it, and the reason is for many reasons. We are a lot of us are so much more exposed to all these electromagnetic fields, but that's exactly what's killing us. And so the thing is not to be afraid of that. The thing is that we need to learn how to respond to this new evolutionary cycle for humanity, because this is pretty much history repeating itself. One thing that also has happened, and it happened 12,000 years ago, about 12,000 years ago, is that two civilizations were basically at war with each other. And this is the same thing that's happening right now. It's two civilizations, or two or countries that are in competition with each other to basically have the best technology, who's going to have the AI first, who's going to have the drones. And they're so in competition that they don't care that they're killing off human beings, or us, which we are part of Gaia, Mother Earth. So Mother Earth during these times responds, and she responds by literally, trying to kill off this virus off of her too, because these electromagnetic fields are completely changing. And I teach this through Kundalini, understanding that these electromagnetic fields, you are our protection, our spiritual and physical immunity, and that every time all this technology does affect us. And this is why it's so important to have a daily Kundalini meditation practice, so you can use the science of understanding the Kundalini energy so that you can create your own strength and electromagnetic field. This is why it was so dangerous when Our Lady Guadalupe came with the divine feminine message of understanding that we have all the power and medicine we want in here. So the technology you're looking for to evolve into the age of Aquarius is actually within. But you've got to face yourself, because the thing that's happening right now is that all of our ancestral karma is coming up as we are rebuilding this new earth. And what does that mean? I did a whole video on ancestral karma, which I'll link below in the description, but it's deeper than understanding just karma. It's this trauma that was engraved in our cellular memories. This is exactly what Barbara Hand Claude describes. When she said that, I was like, now I understand why my life purpose has brought me here, because in the last year especially, I've really deepened my own ancestral karma work. And I've been doing specific Kundalini meditations to heal my ancestors' karma. I thought I was just going to be healing. There was a lot of tragedies that happened on the side of my mom's family. She lost her father, my grandfather, and basically he was murdered. So it was very tragic. And she lived a very tough life growing up, poor in Mexico, and just very difficult for her mom, and just in general. So I wanted to just connect more to healing, maybe even ancestors that I thought I knew about. But the thing is that this type of work and these meditations take you so deep, and they started to take me to thousands of years ago, like thousands of years ago, and to ancestors that I didn't even know. And then my life started to make sense, because one time when we were in, and I'll have to do a whole other video on this too, but there's been a lot of mystical experiences that have happened to me and my family in our trips, which I call our pilgrimages, and they all make sense now. And one of these trips was, or one of these pilgrimages was, we went to Maui and Kona and Kauai in the islands of Hawaii. And the first time we went during a time that was there was something that had happened in our life that was very tragic, and we didn't even know how to react. And so we had this trip that had already been scheduled, and we went, and there was this situation where we were driving around beautiful road to Hannah, and my son and I kind of were chanting. I remember we were chanting beautiful sacred chants, Krishna Das. We were chanting to something of his, and then we turned to the side, and we were almost, I think, we were crying and just grieving and feeling what we felt. And we turned to the side, and there was this beautiful, very tall, white figure, very, very tall, kind of like coming out of the mountain. And he was having a conversation also with like a regular human. So, like, we were looking at him and we're driving kind of slow because you really can't drive fast there. And I looked at my son, I was like, "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" And my other son was asleep in the back. He's like, "Yeah." So it's just like it looked definitely not from this planet. It angelic, just very like beautiful, radiant, and kind of like they looked up but didn't really say anything to us and just watched us, and we just kept driving. So very incredible moment. And as I was been doing my ancestor karma meditation and work, I've been connecting more and more to these types of memories and beings. And recently, last year, I was taken to this beautiful place in Sedona just by my intuition. I've been going to Sedona for more than 14 years, ever since I moved here to Arizona from California. And let me tell you, like, always know where everything's at in Sedona. And this time I just was taken to this place, and it literally was it was a beautiful place. And if you don't know what Sedona is, I mean, you have to check it out. It's very mystical. You can do a lot of energy work there. You can really face a lot of traumas and level up your energy. Meditation is vital there. It uplifts you to a whole other level, and you can connect definitely to higher consciousness and higher beings for sure. And so I was taken to this place that was actually created by my ancestors, your ancestors, the Lemurians, and they had this beautiful just land where you could go, and it was all about healing your heart. And I just had the most amazing experience, which again, I'll go do another video on that specifically. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because these civilizations are here, and this what happened was that 12,000 years ago, these Lemurians, they, from what I can gather, is they connected deeply with their heart. So they used a lot of technology that had to do with their heart centers. And there was another civilization at the time as well, which is the Atlantis civilization. And now, because science and technology has been so advanced, there's archaeologists, there's people that can now dive deep into the ocean, because the ocean is a whole other world. Like, talk about, you want to go to the Astros, want to go to the moon, you go down to the ocean, that's like a whole other planet, right? And now they're able to find, these lost cities that really tell a whole other story about the world. And as now the history is being retold, we are seeing that there was this a history of two civilizations, Atlantis and Lemuria. And what I've been connecting with is that Lemuria is from the heart, and that Atlantis is the mind, and that they came to a crossroads as humanity. Both of them thought their technology was better than the other, and since they couldn't come into agreement, there was a catastrophic event that either happened immediately and took all of them out, except for a few that still live in certain places in the world. And what's interesting is the places that they live are places that I visited myself. I did some research, and I found someone else who had channeled this and who had been connecting. And like, they live in the islands of Hawaii. Kauai is a big place where they went, the ones that were left, to create this new earth. They're really to be here as part of humanity, but not really show themselves. Mount Shasta, which was another one, Sedona, because at one point they say Sedona and the islands of Hawaii were connected. Thailand, Peru, they went to a lot of the South American islands, as well as South American country or continent. So it was just like my life just started to connect itself. So what a lot of us are feeling right now that you may not understand is, then this is why people's fears are being magnetized, because first of all, they release something like 5G, which people will know, the government, whatever you want to call it, the government, 1%, whatever you want to call them, right? This they know that this is going to affect humanity, and that people are going to be, there's going to people's lives will be lost. So there is always a secret agenda. There's things that our rights get taken more and more, as they sign these stimulus packages and different things, right? And so that's definitely happening. And this is not something to make you afraid. This is something for you to start to become more self-reliant and it's truly sovereign. I mean, that's exactly what we're doing in our life, right? It's about now stepping up. This is a drill, and now like we're ready to actually do something about it and actually not just talk about it. And I'm talking about self-reliance and sovereignty in your mind and what you eat, right? And what you say and everything and what you allow yourself to consume. And so these civilizations, they both had an opportunity. And this is what Barbara Hannah Cloud talks about. She says, we have this opportunity where we have to turn it off because the technology is that 5G is too much for us, right? Or we have to learn to work with technology and energy in a whole different way because the Palladians, which is what she channels and her ancestors, they were able to move to another planet and live in high consciousness by creating new technology that did not hurt the earth or did not hurt their planets. And she doesn't know exactly what the technology how it's used, but there was a lot of even Tesla was trying to get free energy to so many people, and she talked about how it had to do maybe with water. So right now what we need is a lot of inventors, and I believe me, I've been through my meditations connecting and asking my ancestors to lead me and help me how I can, figure how we can take this route. Because if we as human beings don't learn to understand energy, then we're really gonna, go extinct again. Which leads me back to why it's so important for you to understand that this is the age of divine feminine, as well as you understanding what Kundalini is. Now, you don't want to go save the whole world before saving yourself, and it's not really saving because there's nothing to save. The Bhagavad Gita, a great manuscript that really Arjuna, the great warrior god, throws him into battle and tells him, "You have no enemy." We don't have an enemy. Our only enemy is our mind. And you get to participate in whatever timeline you want to participate in. That's sovereignty, right? The more I speak of it, the more I have to walk the talk myself too, right? And so we get to decide what is going to happen based on our own inner work and our own facing ourselves, where we accept ourselves. Healing is more about accepting yourself than fixing or changing. If you're fixing or changing, you're creating more karma or more programming that something is wrong with you. So ultimately this goes back to self-worth. So there's several videos that I've done about healing your fears and codependency and things of that nature. But truly, it all goes back to self worth. And once we have this self worth, we'll have this also self worth and connection to our outer world, to Mother Nature, which, she's send all her kids back to their rooms because Mother Nature always wins. And as we are now in such epic times where, the everything in the financial system is going to fall apart, time, the rings around Saturn, those are always connected to the psychology of time. And that as the wise timekeepers, the Mayans and the Aztecs, time is no longer, as you can see, everything's happening at once. It's just no longer linear. So everything's crumbling all together. And there's this opportunity to be part of the transition team, I call it, being part of the resurrection. And because the reason they call this thing, this Toj virus, right? They have this crown word that's associated is because there's this resurrection that's happening, right? And we're all crowning ourselves. We're accepting the Christ consciousness. I did a whole video of understanding Sarah Tamar, which is Christ's daughter and Magdalene's daughter, and how that consciousness of the divine feminine is awakening right now. And because it's awakening, the Kali Yuga doesn't want to go in peace. That old patriarchal Piscean age wants to push until the end. So this is going to be a lot of big transition, a big change. There's going to be a lot of people that may not make it because this new frequency is just, it's not that they're too weak for it. It's a lack of self-acceptance. Your biggest traumas, your biggest fears are being really expanded on and they're being played on right now. Just like the movie Bird Box, or yeah, it's Bird Box, not Birdcage, right? It really is that way. That's the way the sovereignty is taken from you in this new age of Aquarius. Age of Aquarius is all about, it's a water sign. It's all about power to the people, right? So we will have a cleanup by the end of 2020, which is Most astrologers are just this the winter solstice 2020, right before Christmas. Huge energy that's going to be moving through the planet that will inevitably bring in a brand new leadership because Capricorn is all about governments and leadership. So really expect the unexpected. And the whole thing here is, it's like the movie Avatar. And will nature just turn her children around completely, and will we fully reconnect back, or will it be a balance, of connection to nature, as well as using technology for the higher good instead of for taking people's consciousness, life force energy. That's what's key. So right now, more than ever, it's important for you to understand Kundalini. It's important to understand how energy works inside of you and in this world, because together and in that manner, you'll be able to really understand and evolve and adapt and thrive. That's the key. Thriving in the age of Aquarius, not just being stuck to our old programming and old ways of living. I mean, if you keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting new results, that is the definition of insanity. So it's starting the process of accepting that everything forever will have ever changed. Your healthcare system, looking at being more open minded and not so dogmatic about who you give your power to and how you heal, right? Preventive medicine is so important, right? How our economic system will forever be changed, our government system, our leadership will forever be changed, our school system, everything will forever be changed. So more important than ever for you to understand the energy, the Kundalini energy within you, how to work with it, how to stabilize your nervous system, how to truly, truly be in sovereignty during these epic times so that you can seek out and attract to you also opportunity, because there's always opportunity, especially as things are crumbling, but only for those that are in the stillness enough to actually see it. So, as you can see, the divine feminine energy, Kundalini, and this new earth is being resurrected all come together. All these things that are happening have this incredible story behind them. It's your story too. It's your story of awakening, of connecting to the truth of who you are, of truly being a sovereign woman, not just talking about it, by learning to truly accept yourself and healing this ancestral trauma when those two planets went down, or those two continents went down. That started the trauma that lives in the cells of you and I. And so right now people are afraid of what? They're afraid of the end of the world. And why? Because that's what happened back in 12,000 years ago, not because it's going to happen again. If people like myself left a 15-year business, real estate broker, business owner that was lucrative, to focus on Dharma, healing, especially ancestral karma, like I just look at God, I think to God and connect to Divine Mother and say, wow, what a miracle that I even got into this work. How? And now that I understand what's happening, it's like, wow. So there's hope. If I was able to transition into the transition team, so can you. It's just going to take you understanding that you are the problem as well as the solution, and that you have a lot of power. You just have been given it up in a way to this illusion of duality. A sovereign woman truly knows who she is. A sovereign woman thrives during these epic changes of Piscean patriarchal times to Aquarian matriarchal times. Sovereign woman is an executive and a leader, especially at our home, raising the frequency in her home so that that's what's being projected out into this world. This isn't a great opportunity and an epic time to be alive, but you truly do have to have a nervous system that can truly perceive this, as well as and a good understanding and a technology to help you to understand the science of energy. And that's exactly what we do inside of my Women's Society Satori, which enrollment is not open for right now, but I promise I will be doing a special open enrollment very soon. Inside my Women's Society are women like you that are that are doing the inner work and are ready to take their power back, heal holistically, understand the power of self healing through energy work, and being able to use the sacred science of Kundalini Yoga technology. We have live A Course in Miracles study group, which allows us to get our consciousness into Christ consciousness, which is rebirthing in this entire consciousness in this world, in all of us, not just in men, but also in women. This incredible power of the divine feminine that is truly allowing us to understand what all the gurus came to teach us, that love is the way, and that through our own self love and self acceptance, we can find our sovereignty and we can find our way back home. So I'm looking forward to be announcing the dates for open enrollment here very soon. Definitely not for everyone, and you'll be able to understand who it's not for here very soon. But if you hit the like and subscribe button, you'll be able to get notified when that happens, as well as, again, every time I go live, which is Tuesday and Thursday. So I'll be back later this week with a very beautiful, powerful Kundalini Yoga meditation that will help you shift yourself into this age of Aquarius, help you bring it all together, this divine feminine energy, being able to understand Kundalini, as well as understanding how to strengthen your spiritual immunity so that you can be part of the transitioning team into this new earth that is resurrecting and that is crowning just the way you're crowning yourself. Look forward to connecting with you very soon. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and sharing with others. Sat Nam and Namaste.